All right, let's talk about one of the biggest headaches in data analysis, just getting your data into shape. Today, we're going to demystify an amazing tool in the R programming language called the dplyr package. If you've ever felt like you're spending way more time wrestling with your data than actually analyzing it, well, this one's for you.
So here's our game plan. We'll kick things off with why wrangling data can be such a pain. Then, we'll introduce dplyr as the solution, your new best friend. We'll break down its 5 core functions, or verbs, then walk through how to get it up and running. We'll even tackle the dreaded package hell and what to do when things go wrong. And finally, we'll talk about what you can discover once you have these tools in your hands.
Okay, let's just dive right into that first big challenge. Because before you can find those incredible, game-changing insights, you first have to face the messy, often frustrating reality of just getting your data clean and organized.
I mean, seriously, does this sound familiar? If you're nodding right now, you are definitely not alone. This is probably one of the most common complaints in the entire data world. It's slow, it's tedious, and frankly, it's the boring part that stands between you and the fun stuff, the actual analysis. But what if there was a more intuitive, more human way to do it?
Well, there is. This is where we introduce our hero, dplyr. It's a package specifically designed to make data manipulation in R feel less like writing confusing code and a lot more like having a simple conversation with your data.
And here's the core idea that makes dplyr so revolutionary. Don't think of it as just a bunch of random functions. Instead, think of it as a language, a grammar for manipulating data. It gives you this small, consistent set of verbs, and with them, you can clearly tell your data exactly what you want it to do.
And this whole thing was built with a clear purpose. The creators had 3 main goals. First, figure out the most essential data tools and make them ridiculously easy to use. Second, make it fast, and I mean blazing fast, by using C++ under the hood. And third, make sure you can use the exact same commands whether your data is in a tiny file on your computer or a massive company database. Super consistent.
So, what are these powerful tools? Well, the heart and soul of dplyr really comes down to 5 core verbs. And trust me, these 5 verbs will handle the vast majority of what you need to do every single day.
Here they are. You've got select, which lets you pick the columns you want. Filter lets you pick rows based on some condition. Mutate is for creating new columns from the ones you already have. Summarize is amazing. It boils down a whole bunch of values into one single summary, like an average or a count. And arrange, well, it just reorders your rows. That's it. With just these 5, you can do so much.
Let's see how this actually looks. Imagine we have the Star Wars dataset that's built into R. A huge part of the magic here is this little operator, the pipe, which looks like PMGVS. All it does is take the thing on the left and feed it into the function on the right. So you can read this code just like a sentence. Take the Star Wars data, then filter it so you only keep the rows where the species is a droid. See how clean that is?
And this is where it gets really awesome because you can chain these verbs together. Here, we're saying, take the Star Wars data, then group it by species, and then, for each species, summarize it by finding the average mass. In just one single readable line of code, we've answered a pretty interesting question.
Okay, so by now you're probably thinking, I'm in. This sounds great. How do I get it? Well, the good news is that getting started is super easy.
It's really just 4 steps. 1. Obviously, you need R and RStudio installed. 2. Open up RStudio. 3. You only have to do this once. Run install.packages dplyr in the console. And 4. This is the one you'll do every time you start a new session. Just run library dplyr to load it up and make it ready to use.
Now, in a perfect world, that would be the end of the story. But let's be real, sometimes installations just don't go smoothly. So let's talk about what to do when you get stuck.
I absolutely love this quote from a user on Stack Overflow because it just perfectly captures that feeling of frustration, right? But look, it's a totally normal part of learning to code, and there's almost always a pretty simple fix.
It helps to know what kind of problem you're actually dealing with. They usually fall into 2 buckets. You've got installation errors, which happen while you're trying to download the package. That's usually a network thing, or maybe it's missing other packages it depends on. Then you have load errors. That's when you try to run library dplyr and it fails, often because of a conflict with another package you've got loaded.
So here's your basic troubleshooting toolkit. If you think you're missing those other packages, try installing with dependencies equals true. If things just feel really broken, don't be afraid to uninstall it completely with remove.packages and just start fresh. And never, ever underestimate the power of just restarting your R session. It's the turn it off and on again of R, and it solves a shocking number of problems.
So, we've talked about the problem, we've talked about the solution, and we've walked through the practical steps. But let's end by talking about the why. What's the real payoff for learning a tool like this?
This is it. This is the whole point. The reason people love dplyr so much is that it just gets out of your way. It lets your brain stay focused on the questions you have, not on the tricky code you have to write to answer them. It really is about spending less time fighting and more time discovering.
So I'll leave you with this thought. dplyr gives you the grammar, it gives you the verbs to have a conversation with your data. The only thing left to figure out is what you want to ask. What story is just waiting in there for you to find?